Right? And if you had not taken their lives, what do you think would happen to them?
Because they would have continued stumbling.
And where are they going to die?
15 years ago, the nation was shocked to hear about this case. Rusty Yates returned home from work to a nightmare. His 5 children had been drowned in the bathtub by their own mother, his wife, Andrea Yates.
While Andrea Yates might look like an ordinary, successful woman, a loving wife and mother, it turned out that nobody could tell of the impending doom lurking around the sheep in a wolf's clothing. Eventually, this case turned out to be one of the most controversial cases in American history and is nothing compared in severity to other cases. In Houston, Texas, Andrea Pia Kennedy Yates, who was known for signing her friend's high school yearbook as the struggling butterfly, was born on July 2, 1964. She excelled academically and socially, becoming the swim team captain, a respected member of the National Honor Society, and the class valedictorian at Milby High School. Despite her successes, Andrea struggled with an eating issue and had suicidal thoughts, pointing to the complexity hidden beneath the polished exterior. One of the most important meetings Russell Yates had while in college was with Michael Woroniecki, an independent clergyman who taught a strict morality founded on extreme conviction. The catastrophic events that followed subsequently have echoes of this interaction. Russell's ideological assimilation of Woroniecki had a significant impact on the Yates family's way of life. For those who do not know, religious extremism is a type of extremism that is associated with applying highly strict and unyielding interpretations to religious teachings. However, religious extremists frequently think they are upholding the only true interpretation of their religion, sometimes to the point where they are prepared to employ violence or other drastic measures to advance or defend their views. Religious extremism is not exclusive to any religion. It can appear in many of them. It can include acts of terrorism or violence committed in the name of advancing a particular religious viewpoint or objective, as well as the strict application of religious laws to the exclusion of others and oneself to the point of depriving someone of their freedom or causing others to be treated unfairly or excluded from society. Additionally, religious extremism can be utilized by individuals or groups to explain activities that may utterly contradict the core principles of the religion they profess to follow. These behaviors are frequently motivated by a misunderstanding or distortion of religious beliefs. Andrea Yates attended the University of Texas School of Nursing and graduated in 1986, despite her indications of instability throughout her early years as a student. In 1989, she encountered Russell Yates in her job as a licensed nurse, and by the time they moved in together and got married on April 17, 1993, they were both 25 years old and ardently religious. The Yate family moved into a camper van that they had bought from Woroniecki in 1997, and Andrea started teaching her kids in a 38-foot mobile home. She was also going through more intense postpartum depressive episodes. After her son Luke was born in 1999, she was prescribed trazodone. Then, on June 17th of that year, Andrea deliberately overdosed on the antidepressant, putting her in a coma that lasted for 10 days. Russell found her with a knife to her throat and a death wish on July 20th, the day after the hospital released her. From that point on, Andrea Yates started acting strangely, giving away that something terrible was going to happen. Norma Tariak, a social worker, described her observations of Andrea Yates in detail, highlighting her unwillingness or incapacity to identify any recent stressors in her life and presenting an image of a woman estranged from her own struggle. Russell Yates, her husband, was aware of his wife's difficulties, but he thought it more acceptable to refer to her illness as postpartum depression rather than serious depression. Russell was also more concerned about Andrea's spiritual struggles, especially her struggles with the idea of salvation, which appeared to be a burden for her. In addition, Tauriak was especially concerned about the Yates family's unusual living arrangements. According to her documentation, the family, which consists of the spouse and their 4 kids, lives on a small converted bus. Tauriak was concerned about the safety and well-being of the children because of their living situations. So, on June 23rd, she called Texas's Child Protective Services, or CPS, in response to this information and Russell allowing their 3.5-year-old son to use a power drill. A week later, Tauriak's report was recognized by CPS supervisor Dan Wilbur, who noted her diligence, but came to the conclusion that there was not a substantial risk of abuse or neglect, and that no further action was necessary to be taken. The correspondence also stated that the incident had been referred to the Houston Police Department for review in light of their authority over cases of this nature. Recognizing the possible importance of her observations, Tauriak included a comment to the CPS correspondence highlighting how crucial it is to add this information to Andrea Yates's medical file. Unfortunately, until after the horrific events, this important piece of material was disregarded, underscoring a lost chance for intervention. Concurrently, Dr. Flack documented in his notes that he performed an additional interview with the patient and held an extensive conversation with her spouse, during which they pushed for her release into family care, pledging to offer a 24-hour supervision while admitting her potential for self-harm. Dr. Flack later revealed a concerning restriction, though. Andrea Yates was only going to be released from the hospital after a week, not because her readiness had been determined by consensus, but rather because of insurance restrictions. He saw evidence in Andrea's behavior of what he called delusional guilt. In order to address her continued care, Dr. Flack chose to up her antidepressant dosage to 150 milligrams per day, which is a recommended therapeutic amount for Zoloft. He also made arrangements for her follow-up care, sending her to Dr. Eileen Starbranch's outpatient therapy before allowing her to be discharged. An important turning point in Andrea's journey was this decision, which was taken in the shadow of insurance restrictions. It highlighted the intricate relationship that exists between patient well-being, insurance regulations, and healthcare decisions. Andrea Yates experienced a terrible sequence of events where she attempted to slit her own throat in an attempt to end her own life. However, Russell, her spouse, acted quickly to avert a disaster. After this terrifying experience, Memorial Springs Shadows Glen Hospital required an emergency admission for Andrea. It became clear that she was, at best, inconsistent in taking her prescription medications, which included Zoloft. Andrea's profound dislike of such therapies was highlighted when she threw away her Zyprexa, a psychotic drug recommended by Dr. Starbranch, adding to the complexity of the situation. During Andrea's hospital stay, the hospital's psychologist, James P. Thompson, was able to record her deep terror and uncertainty. Her admission of struggling with intrusive thoughts of harm and her vocalization of hallucinations revealed a turbulent inner world filled with remorse and concerns about her ability to be a mother. She experienced a flash of insight as she acknowledged her unwavering love for her family, despite her challenges. When she was admitted to Methodist Hospital's psychiatric unit, Dr. James Flack diagnosed her with major depressive illness, severe single episode, indicating the beginning of a worsening mental health crisis. However, it was clear that Andrea was suffering from postpartum psychosis, a disorder that affects a very small percentage of new moms but has potentially disastrous effects. It is significantly more severe than postpartum depression or the typical baby blues. But when psychiatrist Dr. Arturo Riess recommended electroshock therapy as a course of treatment, Andrea and Rusty rejected the idea. Rather, Andrea started receiving injections of antipsychotics together with Effexor and Wellbutrin, and she gradually started to improve. Russell's steadfast support was clear throughout this process. An image of a husband attempting to negotiate the difficulties of mental illness with his spouse was portrayed by his frequent visits, which were embellished with expressions of kindness and concern. The family's dynamics and treatment methods were constantly modified. For example, Russell moved the family to a more traditional home in Clear Lake, Texas, to promote a more healing environment, and Andrea was able to spend nights at home thanks to PHP, a partial hospitalization program. Furthermore, Andrea's health issues had a role in Russell's choice to buy a house, a move for which she later expressed gratitude. Around this time, Russell also started to nurture their kids, demonstrating his double duty as a father and a carer. Dr. Starbranch's advice, which emphasized the value of medication adherence, despite Andrea's resistance to the couple's desire for more children, continued to be a crucial part of Andrea's care in the interim. The family's unconventional approach to faith and family life, including homeschooling and adhering to traditional religious affiliations at ASU, was highlighted by their distinctive lifestyle choices, including their relationship with itinerant preacher Michael Woroniecki. The Yates' unique living arrangements and Rusty's commitment to family Bible studies added to the intricacy of their circumstances as they managed Andrea's mental health journey. Although there were brief periods of stability, Andrea's fight with her illness was a never-ending struggle, characterized by erratic medication compliance and the enduring risk of relapse, highlighting the complex and ongoing battle with serious mental illness within the family dynamic. But Andrea Yates was faced with an overwhelming struggle, psychosis, which worsened after a year without treatment and was made worse by the birth of her daughter, Mary. When Andrea's father, who she had lovingly cared for during his 7-year battle with Alzheimer's, passed away 3 months later, the situation became grave. Her mental state deteriorated rapidly. She stopped eating, drinking, and communicating with others, and became utterly dependent on her infant daughter, Mary, out of an intense fear of losing her. She needed to be admitted to the hospital right away because she was so disabled. Upon realizing the gravity of Andrea's situation, her spouse promptly contacted Devereux Hospital in League City, Texas, out of concern that she would not be able to endure one more day in their home in such agony. Andrea's situation appears to have been so urgent that doctors Patricia and Mohammed Saeed asked the Galveston County Probate Court to step in right away and order her admitted to Austin State Hospital. They determined that she posed a serious risk to herself and was competent to make decisions regarding her care. Despite this, they did not consider her to be a threat to others, a crucial mistake considering what happened later. Despite her protracted battle with severe depression, no one in Andrea's life, not her family, friends, or the many medical professionals she saw, ever considered her a threat to her kids. Still, the loving Father's Day cards, handcrafted costumes, and Valentines full of promises of cuddles and kisses that she produced for her kids were a far cry from the terrible conclusion. Those who knew her believed that for her to perform such an act, she had to have suffered a severe loss of mental capacity. The constraints of their health insurance coverage played a role in Russell's choice to allow Andrea to voluntarily commit herself to Devereux, rather than face the prospect of state hospitalization. Following a brief 12-day hospital stay, she was released to her family's custody once more. But shortly after, her health rapidly declined, necessitating another hospital stay a few weeks later. Dr. Saeed described Andrea as virtually catatonic, and because of her lack of response, Russell decided to reintroduce Haldol, which opened a new chapter in Andrea's unwavering battle against mental illness. Andrea Yates was admitted to the hospital for 10 days, followed by a week of partial hospitalization, and then was released in the gloomy weeks before a sad occurrence that would capture the nation's attention. 2 weeks before the inexplicable incident, Dr. Saeed made a crucial decision to stop Andrea's medicine, Haldol. He revealed this information to the grand jury later on, but he chose not to discuss it in public. During the court case, Brian Kennedy, Andrea's brother, opened up about his personal struggles and family issues, while also criticizing Russell Yates's courtroom mannerisms. The family's history of mental health disorders and substance misuse, along with Brian's open disclosures about his struggles with bipolar disorder, offers a moving portrait of a family navigating difficult intergenerational problems. Their matriarch, Yuta Karen Kennedy, who had survived the horrors of World War II, was doubly burdened by the weight of these hardships. In just 6 months, she had to deal with an unfathomable loss involving her husband, 5 grandkids, and her daughter's unfathomable deeds. By the time of the catastrophic event, Andrea had fallen victim to a delusional belief, so strong that she imagined her children's deaths as a gateway to paradise, that Satan had taken possession of her and condemned her children. Her twisted yearning for redemption stemmed from her misinterpretation of George W. Bush's authority and her anticipation that the state would put her to death to obtain the salvation she believed she was unable to obtain in life. She relapsed into a near catatonic state on May 3, 2001, and filled the bathtub in the middle of the day. She later admitted to authorities that she had intended to drown the kids that day, but had changed her mind. After a planned doctor's appointment, Yates was admitted to the hospital the following day. Her psychiatrist concluded that she was likely suicidal and believed she had filled the tub to drown herself. Why wasn't she placed on a proper supervision? And why did the family overlook these signs? The Yates family was residing in the Clear Lake City neighborhood of Houston at the time of the horrible event. Yates remained under the care of Dr. Saeed until June 20, 2001, when Russell left for work, leaving her by herself to watch the kids in defiance of Dr. Saeed's orders to keep an eye on her all the time.
Are you having a disturbance? Are you ill or what?
Yes, I'm ill.
You need an ambulance?
No, I need a police officer.
Meanwhile, Andrea was to be replaced by Russell's mother, Dora Yates, who was supposed to arrive an hour later. Andrea Yates drowned all 5 of the children in that very hour of lapses. Unfortunately, John, Paul, and Luke were the first 3 that Yates laid on her bed. After that, she left Mary floating in the bathtub and drowned her. When Noah entered, he inquired as to Mary's condition. After that, he fled, but Andrea quickly followed up to drown him. She left him floating in the bathtub and placed Mary on the bed with John holding her. Then, refusing to give a reason why she needed an officer, she contacted the police several times.
What's the problem?
I'm just leaving the call.
Then she contacted Russell and ordered him to return home immediately. Was this killing a result of her health issue, or was there more hidden truth to Andrea's action?
After you drew the bathwater, what was your intent? What were you about to do?
And the children.
Apparently, Andrea admitted to drowning her kids. She admitted to Dr. Michael Wellner before her second trial that she had waited for Russell to go to work that morning to fill the bathtub because she believed he would have stopped her from hurting them. The family dog was found locked up by police after the murders. Russell told Wellner that it had been let to run free before he left the house, which led the psychiatrist to claim that she had kept the dog in a cage to stop it from getting in the way of her killing the kids, one by one. Still, Russell managed to get George Parnham, a family friend, to represent her in court. While the defense's expert testimony acknowledged Andrea's psychosis, Texas law mandates that the defendant establish their insanity by demonstrating their incapacity to choose between good and wrong at the time of the offense. A jury convicted Andrea guilty in March 2002 after rejecting the insanity defense. The jury rejected the death punishment, despite the prosecution's request for it. Andrea received a life sentence from the trial court, with the possibility of release after 40 years at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. A Texas Court of Appeals overturned the convictions on January 6, 2005, when Dr. Park Dietz, a prosecution witness and California psychiatrist, acknowledged providing materially false testimony during the trial. According to Dietz's evidence, a law and order program that featured a mother who drowned her children and was found not guilty of murder due to insanity had been broadcast not long before the murders. The appellate court unanimously decided that a new trial would be required because Dietz's misleading testimony may have had an impact on the jury. On January 9, 2006, Andrea entered another not guilty plea due to insanity. On February 1, 2006, she was released on bond with the condition that she be admitted to a mental health facility. Andrea was judged not guilty due to insanity, as defined by the state of Texas, on July 26, 2006, following 3 days of deliberation. She was then committed to North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. In January 2007, she was sent to Kerrville State Hospital, a low-security psychiatric facility in Kerrville, Texas. Furthermore, the prosecution suggested that spousal retribution was the purpose for the killings, even though defense specialists concluded that there was no evidence to support such a theory. Although the previous jury thought she was legally cognizant of her behavior, they disagreed that her motivation was spousal retribution. Meanwhile, Russell told the reporters that psychiatrists never told him that Andrea was schizophrenic, or that she could harm the children, and that if he had known otherwise, he would not have had any more children. If I'd known she was psychotic, we'd never have even considered having more kids. But before having their last kid, Andrea told Russell that she didn't want to have sex since Dr. Starbranch had warned that she would harm her children. Andrea then disclosed this information to Dr. Melissa Ferguson, her prison psychiatrist. However, Russell just told her how procreative his religion was, told her she was a fantastic mother, and convinced her that she could handle having more kids. Now, the main question at this point is, how could she have been so sick and the medical establishment have failed to identify that, treat her, and, most importantly, shield her family from harm? Russell and his family members asserted that Andrea's psychotic behavior was caused by a combination of antidepressants that Dr. Saeed had unlawfully administered in the days preceding the catastrophe. According to Dr. Moira Dolan, executive director of the Medical Accountability Network, the antidepressant medication Effexor's warning label was updated in 2005 to include homicidal ideation as an uncommon side effect. Before killing her children, Andrea had been taking 450 milligram, twice the prescribed maximum dose, for a month. Could the drug be the reason for Andrea killing her children? The defense team for Andrea called expert witness Dr. Lucy Puryear, who refuted the claim that Andrea's antidepressant dosages, which were recommended by Dr. Saeed, were unusual in practice and had nothing to do with her recursive psychosis. Instead, she proposed that Andrea's doctor had stopped her on Haldol 2 weeks prior, which may have caused her psychosis to relapse. It takes 4-6 days for the oral form of Haldol to achieve a terminal plasma level of less than 1.5%, which is the medical criterion for a drug's complete removal from the body. Andrea, however, revealed in prison that she had thought about killing the kids for 2 years, adding that they didn't think she was a good mother and that her sons weren't growing up the way they should have. Russell filed for divorce in August 2004 because he and Andrea had not shared a home since the day of the killings. On March 17, 2005, the divorce was approved. What do you think about this case? How can a mother have such hideous thoughts about her own children? Who do you blame? Is it Russell for leaving her alone with the children knowing her health condition? Or was it Andrea? Please drop your comment below. Don't forget to check out any of our videos displayed on your screen with just a click. See you in our next video.